Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads, and especially all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman Big Earl with the Grow Hour. Big Earl, my brother, how the hell are you?
What's up? I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, man, so glad to be back. It's been a hot minute. I'm so glad we're recording tonight. I always look forward to a Wednesday night with Big Earl because we get baked and we get to talk and have a lot of fun. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready to smoke. It's been a long day at work, and I'm ready to smoke with you. What are you smoking on, my friend?
I rolled up a Nightmare OG blunt. I got some new
Nice.
Nightmare that just came down and had a few buds of the old one. And usually I don't put super chirpy weed in blunts, but I thought I might do it for tonight.
There you go.
How
There
about
you
you?
go. I am smoking a strain that was bred by you, but grown by our friend Igneous, called Peanut Butter Breath. A oldie
Oh
but a
yeah,
goodie.
bread. So Thug Pug bred it, but I selected it, and he got it from us through Generation Zero. That's badass. That's cool.
Nice. I love it. Generation Zero. I love it. I love it. I talk about Generation Zero a lot to people, so hopefully you're checking out Big Girl's Generation Zero on his Instagram. If you need life saving to save a plant, and you want to hold that for him. I just talked to a guy that has 100 mother plants. I'm like, you need to talk to my friend Big Earl at Generation Zero, and he can take care of some of those mothers for you.
Yeah. Dude, we can do so much
So
fun stuff for people. We clean people's libraries. We store plants. We sell plants. We do a lot of fun stuff there.
I love it. I mentioned Rachel from Deep Roots on a show. I think it was 2 episodes ago, maybe, or 3 episodes ago. I can't remember what episode I mentioned her, and I just told people, reach out to Rachel at Deep Roots, man. She is a badass person and gets the shit done that you want done. And she'll kick ass and take names and get your plans
Yeah.
saved. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I talk about Rachel quite often, especially when we're doing some articles that talk about certain plant genetics and stuff like that. I'm like, you need to go to my, go to see my peeps. They'll
Yeah.
help you out, whatever you need. So hopefully, I don't really have Instagram anymore, but when I look on Mrs. Weedman stuff, I get to see what you're doing. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's all gonna be the future, dude. If it's not, it needs to be the right now. But in the future, if you want to survive, you're gonna have to get your plants tested. When you get plants, you're gonna have to get them from a lab that has them in tissue culture. You're gonna have to. That's just the only way not to take a huge loss.
Right. On last night's show, Mrs. Weedman, we record on Tuesdays. You and I usually record on Wednesdays. And there was a article we were talking about during our political state and business section that Mike Tyson, the dudes from Cypress Hill, and I'm missing one other person, are starting their own seed lines. I thought it was interesting.
Starting your own seeds, huh? Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I and also what I said on the show, I'm like, good for them, but I'm also kind of wary, like, where are they getting their genetics from? Who's doing their seed lines? What are they doing? That's the kind of stuff. Well, because on a prior episode to that too, we were talking about the seed and breeding industry going to be like a $5 billion industry here by 2030, and I think a lot of these folks that have been in the game for a little bit or started their own cannabis lines or own dispensaries see that need and they're moving into that. Hopefully their genetics are good, because we always talked about how it starts with genetics. And if you have good genetics, you're going to get good plants. I just don't want to see a bunch of people getting into this game and ruining genetics and selling shit genetics because they put their name on it. That kind of scares me. Like, when we've had so many breeders on, amazing breeders, folks that have been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And those are the genetics I trust.
Yeah.
Somebody new coming to the game doing genetics, like a rock star or a former boxer, hiring people to do their genetics. I don't think they know how to breed, so they have to hire people, it just makes me a little wary, and I was thinking about you last night. I'm like, I can't wait to talk to him about this. I got to talk to Earl about what he thinks about this.
No, yeah, you're right. And it's a huge industry. We have more breeding than ever, right? But there is this definitely this what's big right now, bottleneck almost, because everybody at one point wants to breed with this gelato. Everybody, if you got the money to buy these clones, you're gonna buy them from these people. And you see a lot of names like with those with super similar genetics. Like they might have different names, but when you look into it, you're like, oh, this is just a cross of this and this and this. Really, they just did it a bunch of different times in a couple different ways. But I mean, you never know. I think right. I never want to talk shit. I know everybody's a little different, but I think
I'm not talking shit. I'm not talking shit.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying that.
I just want to know how these genetics are going to turn out for people.
Probably very fucking basic, and like everybody else's, So
yeah, they didn't say in this article if they were going to be doing autos or auto femmes, and maybe they are. Who knows? But that scares me even more. Start going down that line too.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they're working with some really good breeders out there. They hired some experienced breeders that have been doing it for a long time, not just some run of the mill shit. So good luck to them. But I was so interested in wanting to talk to you about that because, like I said, we've had some of the best breeders on in the world, and there's some we haven't had on yet that we want to have on. That have been doing it for a very long time, and you included. There have been breeding for a while now and have great genetics. I've grown them. People we know have grown them. So I just kind of something funny too. Oh, I met a dude at an event. I have to give you this pack. I gave him a pack of your seeds just at an event I was at because you gave me a bunch to give away. And he came back up to me. He goes, there was some males in that pack you gave me, and I bred them with this stuff. I don't know. I had the bags in my, and so I had to give you. It's bred with one of his, and it's a cross with one of yours and one of his other ones. So I have to give you. Cool. I have a pack. I have a pack saved for you. So I'm super stoked to see what you think of these genetics. So I can't remember the guy's name. I don't have the pack in front of me. I apologize, but yeah, I'm stoked. So that kind of stuff is fun.
Yeah, super
fun. When someone reciprocates back to you, going, oh hey, you gave me this pack. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Do you mind if I get? And I asked him for a second pack to give to you. I'm like, dude, do you mind throwing me a second pack for Big Earl? I think he'd appreciate it. 1 and 2, he'd probably like to grow it to see how it turns out. Might be cool.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
When you come into town next, we'll get you some of those seeds. We'll get you that pack. So today's show, I'm super excited. Something totally different, everybody. Something that it does reflect cannabis growing, but in a different way. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna use what we've learned on these 77 shows, and now we're going to take it because not everybody wants to grow weed, and I know that, but some people have house plants and have outdoor gardens for veggies and plants, and maybe in your garden you have only plants that grow in your region. Mrs. Weedman and I do, and that only grow here in Illinois. We have a garden just for that, and this was very interesting to me, and I was very interested to see how this show would play off. So when you were writing your notes down yesterday, I don't know if you caught, I jumped on while you were writing your notes. I was going to just say hi, but I had to record. But I was looking at it today, and I was like, this is actually a really good topic.
Yeah,
it's something different to help people who maybe are growing cannabis, but have want to grow a vegetable garden, or have house plants, but they want to learn how to use what they're learning for gardening in their garden to house plants. Or if you're not a home grower, cannabis grower, but you're terrible about growing plants. I can grow cannabis really well, but I can't grow anything else. I don't know why. Just Mrs. Weedman can grow cannabis. She has a shit ton of house plants, a beautiful outdoor garden. Her biggest mistake, and I want her to listen to this show. So after when we launch it, she over attends them. Like always, she used to. She's gotten a little bit better. Like she overwaters a lot, or she does this. She adds too much of that, too much of this, and just because she's just so like pop, 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 pop. Got to take care of my plants. We know that. O-Dog, our daughter, comes over. She goes, you overwater way too much.
Well, underwatering and overwatering can look pretty similar, so it's hard, It's hard with a lot of those because it can be so different. A plant sitting in a south-facing window or outside versus a plant that's like back in the kitchen and it's bright, but it's not like in the window, or it's not,
Right.
And so it's hard. So, but we will talk.
Yeah,
we'll bring it up a little later with media we're all very familiar with that can help with that.
Yeah, I'm so excited about talking about something different, and it relates to cannabis. There'll be some mentioning of cannabis in this show too. Don't get me wrong. Besides what we're smoking, but there's some similarities to the two. So what Big Earl did was kind of did a way of like grow your garden, your cannabis garden, but also use your knowledge to your house plants and your outdoor garden. So let's get into it. So if we got that cannabis green thumb, right? Does that mean we're ready to grow anything else too? Or even if we are already growing some stuff too? Tell us about it.
Pretty much everything. I think that's I think most people who grow weed probably grow other plants at least a little bit. And if you know how to grow weed well, you know, like almost all the knowledge you need for anything. All you need to do is look up like some watering and light, you know, what does this plant kind of need? But yeah, you pretty much know everything. Like literally.
So what are the biggest transferable skills from cannabis growing to regular gardening? And can we talk real quick about how powerful that NPK knowledge is?
Yeah, it's so the NPK you can take over directly. It might be a little bit different on some plants than actual weed. But the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus we've talked about so much, or phosphorus, potassium that we talked about so much, definitely is a big factor. Knowing how to properly water plants, like you just talked about, is a big factor. If you can get weed good to the end, growing well, that means you know how to water pretty well. And that's all these are inside. You probably water them a little less typically because they're not getting pushed as hard, you know. But if they're in a drier area, you might water them, you know, a little bit more. You know, you just pay attention to them like you were getting your garden going, you know. Light requirements, you know, atmosphere requirements. Too much wind, it's too little, you know, a little bit of air movement at some points at least. You know, humidities, all very important. Bugs, IPM, you know, how to pop seeds, how to take cuts. So many of these you can literally just take clones of. I have some downstairs, some different philodendron, and they're air rooting so hard that I can just cut these little bastards off and plant them in the pot. And they're such a cool, beautiful plant, and you know, they're just fun to have around. It's a fun little, it's a fun way to kind of spread some of that and to show off a little bit. Because like it might be a little bit different now, but like for me, I don't really show my garden to a lot of people. I put a lot of work into it. I don't really show many people what I do, what I'm doing, and
I was special. I got to see it.
Yeah.
I was special. I'm still amazed how you have your dogs trained not to go through that flowering room. They stop like on a fucking dime. Bam!
I know.
I was like, damn, you got them trained well.
What's fun is that now, like when you have a few houseplants that you really like, there's so many that are so dope, and vegetables too. Like especially vegetables through the summer, but like houseplants you can have through the whole year. You can kind of show some of that off. You know, like it's not in a tent hidden away somewhere, and so it can be people. Oh, that's a really nice looking plant. Thanks. Like you're taking care of it the way it needs to be taken care of, and you already know really how to do it. It's just about applying it. Like it's such an easy transfer, but I think a lot of people don't make it.
A lot of people kill plants. A lot of house plants have been killed in this world. A lot of them to the death.
Hey, that's why they're always at Lowe's. You just always go buy another one. Or online, dude. So many like Facebook Marketplace has been blowing up. I mean, it's been blown up with plant clippings and all kinds of stuff. And so many fun little shops too. Like tissue cultures are out there getting pretty big in it, and like it's been and is becoming a really big fun. People are breeding and crossing seeds and making new this times this, and other people in the community know what the F that means and what they should like expect out of the new plants, and like it's pretty cool.
Nice. So when you're feeding during flower, right, and you're used to it that way, can you use the same strategy for your garden outside if you're planting like tomatoes and peppers and other vegetables?
Yeah, I think you'd be super close. Even like higher nitrogen feeds before they start fruiting, higher potassium phosphorus feeds when they start fruiting, stuff like that. Although I think most people probably just feed higher potassium phosphorus all the time with a lot of their veggies outside. But that's what a lot of that is. Like, first off, a flower is like that's literally what the cannabis plant is, you know. So going after some other flowers are almost the exact same. And then the tomatoes and the peppers and stuff, you're talking about like a 5-10-10 or something, or maybe a 5-15-10, or everybody has what because like rainwater will depend what else you're feeding it, how you're feeding it, can change all that all the time, But coming in something like that.
For anybody new out there listening, what's the 5-10-10 mean and the 5-15-10 mean for anybody newbies?
NPK is the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium charge, which are the three main nutrients that go into a plant. There are other, nutrients that people would consider macro, like CalMag, magnesium. They've got me going. But CalMag and magnesium might be the other. I might be missing another that people would like consider a macro, a macro, or just under the NPK, and then there's all your micronutrients, but the NPK shows the macronutrients that are like most important to the plant. So when you talk about a 5-10-10, the N being nitrogen, the P being phosphorus, and the K being potassium. That's what those numbers are. So basically, 5-10-10 just says you need 2 times more potassium and phosphorus than you do nitrogen.
We talked about this way early in the early episodes a couple of years ago when we first started doing like how do you start a grow, a home grow, and we talked about nutrients and NPK and stuff like that. But it's still always good refresher for people out there, especially like I said, any newbies out there listening, and this is great. So I love my leafy greens. I love my lettuces. I love my spinach. I love my kale. I like them all. There's not one leafy green I don't really not like to eat. And flowering, like, do you need to water heavy with leafy greens like you would do with fruit plants or other veggies, or can they just have minimal nutrients and just sit back and chill?
Yeah, I mean, so they definitely don't need as much nutrients, and they can have more nitrogen. They don't grow the fruits. That's what a lot of your PK goes to. So yeah, and a lot of them, or at least a lot of the house plants, when you're growing the fruits and you're growing the vegetables, which would be the fruits and the flowers, you need a lot of food to make that. And when you're talking about like a leafy green, or like most of these house plants are vines, or a lot of them are viney, and a lot of them don't create flowers all the time, at least, and none of them create fruits really, unless you got like a little lemon tree or something. So the food can be minimal. A lot of them, the light can be like everything can be very minimal for a lot of these plants, which even makes it more fun because then you have options like that area you don't have anything to do with, you can throw a plant there because it's a bright room, or because you have the right plant for the atmosphere,
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
So how important is it to research specific plant needs then? You ever learn something surprising that totally changed your grow plan out there in your house plants in your garden, outdoor garden?
Yeah. The specific plant needs are huge. But there's plants that will do okay, and they need some light coming in at least. If you have a room without a single window, they're not going to be super happy. And if you have a room that's facing like north, they probably won't be super, or a room where the window's facing north. Maybe they'll get enough light, but that could be a problem too. But pretty much everywhere else, if they can just get some bright light with the house plants, they're going to thrive inside. And the leafy greens for outside, that's the same kind of thing. You can plan your garden around them. So they want less light. If you have a specific spot you're growing that might get less light, it's like behind your house or a deck or a trees over it. That's your leafy green area. If you're growing like the tomatoes and the different stuff the peppers that grow up and get real big and robust and need all that light, maybe try growing under them a little bit or right to the side of them so they can block some of that light for your lettuces and your spinach and all that kind of stuff. They definitely don't want that super bright light, the leafy greens, or the like viney plants, the tropicals. Most tropicals evolved and live and were found like under canopies. So they're used to the high humidity and bright light, but not direct light.
Gotcha.
But research those plants for sure. It'll be everything for you.
Nice. Like I said, don't fuck up the leafy greens. They're good for you. Good poops. Good poops. So, what plants are we talking about here? Tomatoes, peppers, strawberries.
Yeah, like with the veggies, the fruiting veggies. Anything that grows a vegetable or a fruit itself, any large like flower or flower in general that's growing flowers, you can treat pretty similar to cannabis in the NPK world. But still, research the humidities it likes, research the light requirements it likes. The difference between 2 and 4 hours a day of bright light can mess with you bad, or overwatering, or underwatering. You just never know. Sometimes things want to be watered less. Sometimes things need a little bit more light. And knowing what your plant wants and giving it to it, we're all used to that. We've all got things dialed in. You can dial it in a little bit, outside of the room if you're talking about a plant, but outside, the nature is going to do what nature is going to do. So giving it the correct NPK and trying to water it when it's real dry, and then you just let the world do what it does.
Here's the other thing too about houseplants. I think Mrs. Weedman finally realized it a few years back. She started using my nutrient for our indoor houseplants because she was never adding nutrients. Very rare that she add nutrients. And then all of a sudden bam, they all started feeling happy again. The other thing was too, we saved a few plants. They weren't doing too well, and we put them in the tent and left them in there for like 2 weeks, and they flourished. I might have been in between grows or something like that. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to grow for another week or two. Just put them in there.
Higher humidity, maybe.
Yeah, and those plants are still alive today in the south facing window. They're doing great. Cool. It took a little time to get them back in shape. Probably just had them in the wrong spot. Maybe just got weak and, added a good nutrient regimen to it and put them in the tent with some good light and nice humidity. And those things perked right. It was like brand new. They're like had a new life. It's like fucking giving them CPR.
Yeah.
And shit. And they
you gave it a little humidity, control the environment a little bit. And it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah. It was like a whole new world. So could you still grow leafy greens inside by a window? Or do they really need to be a dedicated grow light then?
The leafy greens, no. That doesn't need a light. You can definitely grow it inside a window. With leafy greens, and if we throw like house plants with like the vining house plants and stuff into like a leafy green type of plant, veggies that you're going to consume, the more light for sure, the better. If you're inside, if it's in a south facing window, it's going to probably not get too much light. I guess maybe if it's like really getting nailed, maybe, then you want that to grow so you can eat it. Houseplants are kind of one of those things like, yeah, you want it to grow, but you'll want it to kind of be super healthy and pretty also. And you want to like let the leaves develop, and you're not necessarily just trying to push it, So a lot of houseplants can very, very little. And you can get very good results.
That's good to know, everybody. South face. You've always said that too. You want to grow weed, you can put it in a south facing window. You're good. You're
not going to grow the biggest, baddest, but it's going to grow for sure. And
right.
If you got an autoflower, it's going to do its thing. It's going to be done in so many days. And without an autoflower, it might be you're running into some tricks there, having to follow the time of the year and lights on and shit like that. But an autoflower, for sure, dude.
Are your houseplants tropical too? And what are the ones you got in your pad that you vibe with?
Yeah. I think that's maybe like most of the big house plants um are like tropical vining type. Like they uh they want the higher humidity, which is crazy, which is cool. But before like really even getting into like VPD, which we've done, and like seeing like the humidity and temperature correlations, um, I had never heard of anybody keeping a humidity for a plant in their house. I've heard of them just like having like sometimes there's plants that could look good, and sometimes there are plants that didn't look good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they are if you have like a monstera, a pothos, a philodendron, a syngonium, an anthurium, um, those all like humidity. And some people say spritz, some people don't say spritz. I like spritz, but I like spritz the plant with some water. If you can't get it into like, yeah, if you can't get it into something that's like 50% humidity inside, um, or above 50-60%, I like to take tap water and spritz it. And I do that because it's easy, first off. And I kind of like that it has some stuff keeping it sterile in there because people talk about spraying their plants and getting mold spots sometimes. So
Oh.
I'm not, all I'm trying to do is get some humidity up. So I just give it a little spritz.
Spritz, 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 spritz. How do you balance that light and humidity for house plants in a dry home or a cold climate, especially here in fucking the Midwest, man, in the wintertime? Oof. If you don't have, I mean, if you have a humidifier hooked up too, it still doesn't give you what you truly need. It helps, but but yeah, in Illinois, man, it gets dry as fuck.
No, for sure. Yeah. It's sometimes it's challenging because you also don't want like really high humidities in your house. Like you don't want to, you want to, that dryness is nice for the attic and stuff, But
Yeah.
the spritz works well. You can put like a little humidifier by, like if you have like a group of plants, like one specific south facing window that you really like, you can put a little humidifier by it that won't hurt it. But really, they make cabinets and they make like plastic covers to shelves. So if you have like those wire shelves, like in kitchens, they make plastic covers to those. Like you can put all. It's made to like probably to store like plates and stuff into, honestly. But they work really well. You throw a little T5 or two in there, or get it by a nice window, and they work really well. And you can keep humidity pretty well. You can't have more than like a T5 LED replacement or two, or they get too warm. Unless you keep a really cold house. If you keep your house at like under 68, I guess. But at 70, we keep our house at 72, and it gets a little too warm in those.
Gotcha.
With more than like 2 to 3 of those lights.
Interesting.
But yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff. But just make sure too you're checking shit. If you're spraying a lot, if you get into plants and you're spraying things around your house, check your attic. Make sure you're not building molds and shit. It fucking can happen. Like high humidities make that shit happen.
Yeah, you could tell. You could tell when your house is too humid too, because your windows on the inside start getting that nice condensation going on. Sure. Mrs. Weedman yells at me all the time. She goes, "Don't set that humidifier too high." I tell you when you do, because I could tell the windows all of a sudden start getting drippy. I'm like, and she goes, "It just ruins and brings mold, and it ruins the wood, and you'll puddle up and ruin your nice whatever you got." So I mean, yeah. So I always have to keep it at a certain level here in the house, but yeah, it does get dry as hell in the Midwest. Whew. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
Super hot times and super cold times.
Yep.
And rough.
What's your go-to humidity then? And these pebble trays you were talking to me about, do they actually work?
Yeah, I like them. So I use like the same trays that you'd use to clone. And when I have smaller plants, I will put like some pebbles in those just to separate them and put water in them. The humidity like the vapor will rise with the temperature, so you put them down on the bottom. Especially if you have one of those, if you have a cover to the wire shelves, because it can like kind of block a draft coming in under there too.
Right.
And for me, they work pretty well. When it gets real warm, real cold, I still give them a little spritz, like the smaller ones if I'm doing like little babies or something. But yeah, it works it all works surprisingly well. If you have a house plant, you're like, man, this just isn't very happy. Give it a little humidity and see. It's some of them are just like you said. As soon as you give them those right parameters, they take off.
Nice.
Yeah.
We were talking before. I didn't really realize that house plants. I was freaked out. Like really like cocoa.
Dude.
Is that fucking for real, man?
They love all the cocoa. The cocoa chips.
How do they fucking thrive in that?
Cocoa's the shit. Cocoa is just a really nice medium. It can retain water, but it lays like almost like a bundle of sticks when you get down to it, and it doesn't like drown out roots. And so these plants, a lot of these house plants, and even veggies, if you really want to push your veggies hard, throw them in some fucking cocoa. Like, make sure you're watering them really well. Make sure you add CalMag. Because you do need, if you use cocoa, always add extra calcium. Not like an organic calcium, like an already ionized calcium. The cocoa will use some calcium to bind itself and to like just to bind itself, and it makes it unavailable to the plant to the plant, and that's why you need to add the calcium to these things. So anytime you use a cocoa core, if you're just using like some cocoa chunks, like they make cocoa chips, they're really really nice. Cocoa chunks, perlite, which we all know, like those 70-30 perlite mixes are dope. I've always been a big fan of doing the leca, the clay pebbles at the bottom of the trays, at the bottom of the pots, or perlite, like a perlite, but the clay pebbles, just nothing falls out of like holes and stuff if I'm not doing a cloth pot. And you can kind of wick with them. If you use those clay pebbles at the bottom, you can say you have a bunch of little plants. You can use those clay pebbles at the bottom of your pots. Put them in those same little like 12-inch by 18-inch clone clone trays we have that everybody clones with the dome, same shit. And you put some water in the bottom of them, and the pebbles will elevate everything above the water, but it'll still be enough to keep the medium really moist and real nice.
Nice. So kind of like just the pebbles are there just to help water. And they don't actually give nutrients or anything to the plants, do they? It's just more of a
like aeration,
base. Gotcha.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and a nice aeration. It helps, like just the roots really like it. And if you want to bottom feed, it gives you that option too, pretty easily.
Oh, gotcha. Nice. So rethinking how we feed our leafy house plants or ornamentals, can we underfeed them? Like, should we rethink all this?
Yeah. No, you can definitely underfeed. It's all the plant and where it's at and what you're trying to do with it. You get back into veggies, like, you don't feed veggies enough, they just don't grow vegetables. With leafy greens, you'll probably have enough. And if you grab a bag of soil, like what you would use for cocoa or for cannabis, like 707 or Happy Frog, or the Happy Frog doesn't have as much nutrients as that little green bag cousin. What's the other one? Anyway, a bag with food in it. A lot of those leafy greens, if you're inside, especially, or a lot of these house plants, that food's going to last a little while.
Gotcha.
Now, if it's getting nailed with light, or it's really growing fast, I mean, that's all. If it grows of something, it's growing of something that's pulling from the soil. So if it's pulling from the soil, it's you have to give it there. Outside in the rain's a little different, but you still want to add food for sure if you have veggies outside. But
interesting. Yeah. I haven't done a vegetable garden in a long time. Mrs. Weedman did one. She did global buckets, they were called, where you take these 2 buckets, drill a hole, reservoir system. It was pretty cool. When we did those outdoors, I think we didn't give the plants enough nutrients because a lot of the vegetables were smaller, or she planted too many plants in one global bucket. It was only a 5-gallon pot, so I think she might have planted like 3 per pot. I think it was just too much. The plants came out beautiful. We just didn't get a lot of fruit and veggies. and
Yeah.
growth and stuff because we had too much taking that nutrients up. It's like planting 3 cannabis plants in 1 5-gallon pot. It doesn't work that way.
Outside's hard with pots, dude. When you start to get in pots and you don't have the help of like the ground,
Right.
a hot day can like kill a plant. Sometimes you have to water every day, or if it's going to be hot during the day.
These were reservoirs. So there were 2 5-gallon buckets with a hole drilled with a Dixie cup in between, and a PVC pipe where you water through, and then you had a reservoir that just held the water down there for you.
Yeah,
and you would just, then you put a hole. Yeah, so that I forgot to tell you the whole thing. They were called global buckets. They're actually pretty cool if you don't have like a lot of room or something and you want to do something like that. I'd look them up. I think you can find it on YouTube. Mrs. Weedman did a great job. She had a lot of them, but like I said, we did it for like 2 years, and then it didn't happen again.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. But I think we fucked up because we added too many seeds to one, too many plants. Little plants to the soil, and there should just have had one to each bucket, and we probably would have got monsters, because the people that we saw doing this in the neighborhoods, they were getting monster tomatoes and monster fucking zucchini and just whole watermelons and pumpkins and shit. It was all over the place. I'm looking at like, the fuck happened to our shit? We got a little fucking watermelon like that big. Like 2 bites. Zucchini were like the size of my fucking nubby, so like, what the fuck's going on? The lettuce was fire, and we got a lot of good herbs. That was good. The lettuce and the spinach was really nice, and we were picking fresh lettuce and spinach and herbs every day. That was fun. Basil was grown, but just the larger vegetables, cucumbers, peppers, all that shit, just too many plants per bucket, unfortunately.
It needs more food. It needs more light too, so that's a big,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
IPM, one of your favorite topics.
Yeah.
we talk about IPM a lot. So this is different though, because your IPM has got to be on point. And I know IPM for people here on houseplants I don't think take as much care as they should on their IPM. So how often should folks be doing IPM for houseplants and for garden veggies? And then I know you got a couple horror stories you can fucking talk about.
The bugs are just as bad with houseplants. The biggest thing with houseplants is you can use, if you want to, I'm not saying, but you can use nasty like systemics where you can't use that in weed, But weekly, dude, same as weed. You'd think some of these collectors of houseplants, dog, some of the numbers I've seen on people's lists, I'm like, you pay that much for a houseplant. Probably just like some people are like, you pay that much for a clone, and somebody, you're like, oh, it's the clone though, That's how people are with houseplants. It's like the hottest thing, and then that hottest thing gets picked up by a big like garden or greenhouse, right? And that greenhouse then makes like a bajillion of them, or they start tissue culturing it and start making a bajillion of them. And then a few of the hottest things this year are going to be on a lot of the shelves next year. And it rotates like that. But those hottest things, when they first hit, oh my God, some of the numbers are crazy. Where it's like, if you're not using IPM on this beautiful plant that you just paid whatever for, you better be. But yeah, I would weekly. Outdoors, I think the best thing for IPM on stuff that you're not going to be eating is sulfur. Indoors, so outdoors, I like sulfur because bugs don't like it, and they have other options outdoors. Indoors, I dislike sulfur because I feel that it's not as effective, because if you don't actually hit the bug with the sulfur itself, and even then, I don't know if it really kills it, but they just don't like it. It doesn't necessarily kill them. And sulfur is very picky with oils, and so if you use sulfur, you basically only use sulfur. You can't spray it super often. Where like a lot of these oil and alcohol mixes, you can spray daily if you really need it. If you're like, oh my God, I've been slacking, I got a problem. But outdoors, sulfur is so nice. But bugs just want to go somewhere else. So you let them.
Die, you bastards.
Yeah, and diatomaceous earth too, dude. I know we always talk about that.
I just fucking put all of my I had some fucking anthills that were out of control. So I don't like to kill them, but I had to because there was just like way too many. So I had to like get rid of a few here and there. You don't need to have that many. But and then putting it on some of my trees. I did the spray, watered it down.
Yeah.
Did the spray. Try to get rid of some of those fucking bugs that start off this fucking late spring, early summer, nasty, making your leaves all shrivel and shit, like the old man in the 90s, got his little shrivel. That's what happens to your leaves. They suck that juice out, So all of a sudden you look at and all of a sudden you're like, look at all these fucking bugs. And I don't know what half of this is. It could be aphids, it could be fucking mites, whatever. I don't know what the hell half of this shit is. But I'm just looking at them going, look at these little bastards, man. Yeah. So, give me that DE, baby. Sometimes I'll just take it and just fucking effective. Just throw the powder on there and just say fuck it,
So they make these little accordion looking things, and they're like dusters. And so I have a couple of those, and I walk the house a few times a year and spray all my the base of my house. But in a garden setting, you can get that like fresh and get your first fresh few like accordion rips, like you push down on this thing and it makes it all fluff out.
Right.
That shit can like my neighbors have to be looking at me because my yard's just like clouding with DE, and like it's just like the wind's like kind of drifting it over into other people's yards. And I just want to be like, it's okay. Like it's just a little DE.
You're not gonna die.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound, but it is, a couple times when I let it calm down a little bit. It's a little windy out here. I don't want people being pissed off. But man, it's such a nice.
It works.
It's so good. It's so good.
What's your favorite way to use outdoor spaces for your indoor plants or veggie startups?
My deck's got a bunch of my house plants. I love them out there. There's a big tree over it, so it doesn't actually keep humidity, but it naturally like keeps it from this direct sunlight. So they get like very little direct sunlight at all, like peeking through the leaves a little bit here and there sometimes. So I have a perfect little spot on my deck. But porches are nice. Just make sure they don't. A lot of the house plants don't want direct sunlight. Now veggies are way different, or anything fruiting or flowering. They want all the sunlight. They can handle up to 8 hours of direct a day. A lot of them. So, all the sunlight for anything you're trying to fruit or flower is just going to get bigger. They're going to want more water with it. They're going to be a little bit more finicky if you mess something up because they're getting pushed a little harder. But leafy greens, and most of these houseplants, unless they're like vigorously flowering, are not going to appreciate that.
Vigorously.
You can put them outside. Yeah, vigorously. You can still put them outside. If you have like a north side of a wall where the light doesn't directly hit it, perfect for it, or a covered deck a little bit, or like a tree over it where the light, just as long as the light's not pounding a lot of the leafy greens or a lot of things that aren't fruiting and flowering.
Gotcha.
They just don't need it.
So dechlorinating, so important, right? Especially for sensitive house plants or your microbes in the soil. So basically what we're talking about here is like your chlorine in your water, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have filters added to your hose. It's worth it. They're so effing cheap. I get a new one every single year. I get two every year because I split my hose off and I use one on both sides. They're rated per gallon, and at some point years ago, I decided that I needed it for so many gallons. I haven't done the math since, but they work pretty well. And when you're talking about a garden outside, like when you're adding just house water, especially a garden outside, you kill all your microbes. If you want something super delicious and juicy and organic, you have to have your microbes. And so I don't think it kills it all. But I definitely notice a difference in my garden when I dechlorinate versus the years I hadn't. It's a pretty big difference.
Do you know the name of the thing you use for your hose?
If you put in like chlorine filter or something, hose chlorine filter into Google, Amazon, any of that, they'll pop up. It's just like a little, almost like the canisters you'd see going into an RO, but completely encased itself. And one side, you just twist it into your hose. But I don't notice very much pressure. Like I run all my sprinklers off of those. I have a little mister that back on my deck that I run off of that, just for my house plants a little bit when it gets real warm. Or for anything out there, like sometimes like starts and stuff want higher humidity, so I'll put them out with that. But yeah, they work very well.
Nice. I'll look that up. Tell Mrs. Weedman about that. We live in the Midwest, but you live a little further east than I do in the Midwest. Great state of Michigan. I live in the great state of Illinois. There's native plants that you should be planting in your garden. And each state has, Midwest might have some of the same plants in the same states, but there's also different plants in different states. And you should stick with that. You shouldn't be planting stuff outdoors, especially from what Paulie told me, because he went to school for horticulture, and he said you should stick with the native plants in your region instead of bringing outside invasive species plants that can fuck up everywhere. So, what are some of your favorite native plants in your region?
So I just recently got onto a lot of native stuff, which is really fun. I'm not gonna remember all of them, but I know my favorite ones. I got a bunch of black-eyed Susans, which I was like, so these just regrow every year? Like, yeah, not only do they regrow every year, more of them grow next year. I got a small mulberry starting, which was really fun. That was native, that'll be growing back every year. And a couple of butterfly bushes.
Yeah, we got those. Those are beautiful. Those are beautiful. We got those. Yeah, they're nice.
There's a native place, and I don't know if I'm just late to the game, but there's a native place that's about a half hour from me, and it's called Michigan Natives. And that's all they have. And they have such a cool propagation technique. They have these like foot long, every plant is in like this foot long plastic like starter. And it goes, their trays are made out of wood, but I'm assuming they have like plastic covers, and they're flooded. And so some things are so long, the tips of the bottom stick down into the water, and it wicks it all the way up to the plant. And all these plants were very, very, like, even earlier in the season. They have like one big hoop house that I saw with open ends. Other than that, everything's straight outside, maybe with like shade cloth over it. Wow. So like everything gets overwintered, everything regrow, like very cool. And so I ended up buying like, literally, I can't remember the names of so many of them, and it's so bad.
You're like a kid in a candy store. Take one of these,
I bought like these. 20. That's exactly. I was looking at the pictures, like, oh, this one, and I have like a part of my yard that is a little bit more wet, and so this place says, hey, this likes a little bit more moisture. Okay, so the ones that wanted more moisture or a little less sun, I put them under some of these trees. A little more moisture, I put it back in this little drainage area. The ones that like you beat down with sun, I'll put it on this side of the house, and they all look cool so far. Some of them have already multiplied. One of them I accidentally ran over with the lawnmower. So that one I don't think is going to make it, but the other ones look great.
Nice.
Yeah, they're cool. I'm excited for next year.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to seeing some pics. Big Earl, some pics.
Natives, baby. Natives are fun. You plant them one time. Yeah,
that's all that's what I like. So where you just plant them once and they just regrow year after year. That's easy.
Prettier and stronger every year.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Big Earl, brother, got anything else to talk about that we might have missed?
I'm not sure. There was definitely one thing we didn't bring up. We brought it up a little bit, but I don't think we talked about how severely we needed it. It's a hard thing to remember, though. You just need to remember, and you might know what it is. It's CalMag, guys.
Your house plants, your outdoor plants, and your veggies will appreciate you if you do this one thing. And what do we got to give them, Earl?
CalMag, baby.
Everybody out there, don't forget the fucking CalMag, everybody. We love you. Peace! Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.